Assalamu alaikum. My name is Akil. I was born and raised in Canada, and I'm a Muslim. And I've got some questions about Halloween that I want to put to Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick, a historian, a sheikh, and scholar who was educated in Medina and born and raised in Boston. And Halloween to me seems like a pretty innocent time of year. Kids dress up, they're cute, they get candy. But I've been thinking about it a bit more now that I have a kid of my own. And Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick has written a book about it called The Holiday Myths. And in it, he speaks about the history of Halloween. And this time of year, the fall time of year, pumpkin spice lattes and ghosts and goblins. What do we do with all of this as Muslims in North America? You, PhD historian, you've written a lot about the history of things from an academic point of view. So give me the whole history of holidays, religions, why religions have holidays. Take me through that.
Well, basically, if we go to ancient times, we see that people used to form their understanding of the world, the concept of religion, around the movement of the stars, the movement of what is happening in the heavens. Also around the movement of seasons. So you have the fall season, you have winter with the cold, especially in the north. Then you have the spring season, things coming back to life. Then you have the summer. So in those areas, especially north of the equator, where there is a lot of changes, this becomes very important, the movement of the seasons. Mm-hmm. Because to a great extent, especially in the north, it actually was the difference between life and death. Also, reproduction and sexuality. You find this also in the concept of religion that people have. But of course, the greatest symbol in ancient times was the sun. So the sun god somehow creeps into all forms of religion, that you find, because the sun obviously being, the largest of creation, and the reason why we have heat and we have life. So along with this comes the prophets now. Who get a revelation, from the Creator, to believe not in the creation, but in the Creator of creation. So this is the struggle in religion that goes on, from ancient times.
So don't worship the sun, worship the Creator who created the sun.
Right.
Yeah. Because of the movement of the sun and the moon, we hear a lot about archaeoastronomy. So buildings and structures and things like that were set up to align with the sun and the moon and that kind of stuff. What kind of examples can we see when we travel around the world of cultures and civilizations orienting their whole lives around the movement of the heavens?
Well, basically, if you travel around the world, you'll see some major monuments and structures that are actually set up based upon the relationship of people to the sun and to the planets. Yeah. Probably the greatest is the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Yeah. So the pyramid, if you go to the top of the pyramid and you go to ancient Egyptian historians, it wasn't just a tomb for the pharaoh, but it was actually pure physics and science. And between the pyramid and also what they call obelisk, which is that straight, object that comes up. This is literally a sundial. So you see the Egyptians and the Ethiopians have this. The pyramids are also in ancient Mexico. The ancient Mayans built huge pyramids. And you also see the Inca in Peru. If you go above their civilization and look down, then you'll see the setup in terms of its relationship. So you'll find around the world different objects. In Europe, probably the best thing that is left is Stonehenge, literally the Stonehenge shape. And, so people are literally aligning themselves with the planets and aligning themselves, with the movement of the seasons.
So it's fall right now. So it's right. October. I grew up in Saskatchewan, so it's a farming community, right? So I always had this really good feel-good vibe about it. The leaves are turning color, their harvest was happening, there's a certain, smell in the air. So what was the significance of the fall season and some of the traditions that we probably get here in North America? You grew up in Boston?
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the fall in Boston?
Well, basically, if you look at
Did the
Boston,
leaves change color in Boston?
definitely.
Really?
New England is one of the most beautiful examples of the change from the green to the oranges and the red, and beautiful.
Yeah.
Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. But if you go around the planet, you will see that those countries that are above the equator, when you start to go north,
Yeah.
you'll also see this dramatic change. And so therefore, in the northern countries, you find that, when the summer is leaving and we're going into fall, in a sense, it's a form of death, in a sense that, the trees are starting to die. But at the same time, it's the harvest season, because it is now that your plants have ripened, and people and animals are storing their food for the winter. So it is a time of joy, because you probably have more ripened fruits at this time of year than any other time. So therefore, the people in the north would celebrate a type of Thanksgiving, because the squash, the pumpkins, the different berries and the colors that are around. And so it's a joyous time for human beings. And of course, it's right before the cruel winter is coming in, because winter is now death. This is the time when all the trees will die, and literally, and the green is gone and the orange is gone, and everything turns very cold.
It gets dark very early.
That's right. So it's very symbolic now, and people's concept of religion is literally structured based upon this. And this is why you get symbols of this. Probably the best examples of this was the Druid religion amongst the Celtic people of the north. And that is now England, Scotland, Ireland. And these Druid priests would celebrate this Thanksgiving. You have this Thanksgiving ceremony that goes on in celebration. But at the same time, because of this death coming in, they had a special celebration or ceremony for Samhain, the Lord of the Dead. And this was October 31st. It was in the evening. And they believed that on that evening, that the souls of people who have died in the year before are brought together by the Lord of the Dead, and a type of mini judgment is going on. And also the souls have the right to even take back or take revenge from people who are on earth. So it's literally a time of the dead, and a frightening time. And so the Druids used to have special ceremonies. They would literally take prisoners and animals, and they would make sacrifices, even human sacrifice at this time, in order to appease the Lord of the Dead. And so it's a harrowing time. And people were really afraid in these times. And because of the presence of these so-called spirits that would be around, many people feeling unease because maybe somebody died before, and you owe him money, or you killed him, or something went wrong. So people would literally wear disguises. Mm-hmm. They would change their appearance, so that if this ghost or spirit came to the surface, it wouldn't recognize them. So all of these type of things are happening in the evening of October 31st. But on November 1st, now it is switching into this Thanksgiving. So what is happening in the northern countries, it's a type of dual signal that is going on. One is the Thanksgiving, that's the overwhelming signal. But underneath it, creeping underneath it, is Samhain, the evil and the dead, the frightening part. So, which is coming at the same time.
So what you've got in the fall, you've got the abundance of crops maturing, you've got food, you've got all these, so that's like the warmth and the abundance, so there's something to be thankful for. And at the same time, you've got the days are shortening, it's getting colder, it's getting darker, the leaves are dying, trees look kind of scary, and so that those two things are sort of colliding, and that's what's happening in the environment.
Right, and you even find the Romans themselves, who in ancient times in Europe had one of the most powerful civilizations.
So before we talk about the Romans, so in your book, Halloween Holiday Myths. In your book, The Holiday Myths, you talked about the journey of how Halloween and Thanksgiving got to North America, and it seemed like it went from, like Egypt, not even Egypt, sorry, Rome, and then Europe, and then moving further west from Europe into, you know, the Celtics, you know, in the northern part of the UK there, over into the US.
Yeah.
So going from Rome to the Christians in Europe to the Celts to the US. Could you maybe walk me through that journey and on how all these different things kind of rolled into one another to then become what we have today?
Well, surprisingly enough, the influence of the people of the North actually had an impact on the Romans. Because from ancient times, the Druids and their ceremonies, which may have predated Roman ceremonies, actually, you know, had this dual signal that is going. So the Romans then incorporated the Feralia, which is the celebration for the evil and the dead on October 31st evening. And then they celebrated for the Lord of the Orchards, Pomona. So they had the dual celebration as well. Now, because they are Romans now, this will spread further than the Celtics. The Celtics were in their northern environment. So the Romans spread it further now. And when Christianity starts to take hold in Europe, especially in the Roman area and then in the northern area, the church now is confronted with this dual type of signal that is going on. And so in order to suppress the satanic evil type of force, the church now makes November 1st All Saints' Day. Okay, and they try to squash October 31st evening. And then they call it All Hallows' Day. And it's a day for the martyrs who have died. There's death still in there. But it's for those heroes who have died and saints who have given their lives for the church and for Christianity. And so All Hallows' Day, for the people who are now trying to get the evening in, they called it All Hallows' Evening. So instead of being straight out Samhain, it becomes All Hallows' Evening. That's the evening of October 31st. And that is shortened to Halloween. So literally that develops in Europe and then it's exported to North America. And it's practiced to a certain extent. Of course, the Puritans and Pilgrims who lived in the Boston area where I come from, they were totally against the satanic forms, and they tried to suppress it as well and focus more on the Thanksgiving part of it. But the Halloween celebration continued, and then with America industrializing, it now becomes commercial.
Right.
And so you find now in the 20th century, you find, you know, candy being involved and, you know, people actually trick-or-treating and symbols being spread around. So it takes another form.
And they're decorating their houses, dressing up in costume, buying lots of Halloween candy. Walmart turns orange.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is important for Muslims and people of conscience to recognize that what we are doing today has roots. And we never, we should never forget our history. We should never forget where we come from. And, you know, it is said that a person who doesn't deal with the past will forever remain a child. Because a child is innocent. A child is just dealing with today. But the person who is mature, the human being who gets mature, connects the past to the present and then projects to the future. So this is really important, especially for Muslims, we find, coming into Europe and to North America from desert climates or from tropical climates. They're shocked when they get this dual signal because Thanksgiving, and we find that Thanksgiving was celebrated by the native people as well, the First Nations in America. The whole concept of a Thanksgiving dinner at this time was something done by the natives. Turkey is an American bird. Cranberry, squash, pumpkins, potatoes is an American plant, tomatoes. Everything which makes up your Thanksgiving dinner was literally being eaten by the native population. Corn started in Mexico. So literally your Thanksgiving dinner is literally something from the native people of America, but they don't get credit for it. Now it's considered to be a European meal that we are taking in honor of Europe.
When I was a kid, all the history books, they had the picture of the pilgrims, like with the big black top
That's
hat,
right.
and
That's
the
right.
big table.
That's right.
There's probably a turkey wandering around in the thing. We'll touch on Thanksgiving in a second. I was thinking about auspicious times of the year. You want to talk about that, where lots of cultures have auspicious occasions, or this certain time. It's better to, in India, for example, they'll some Hindu traditions will say you should get married on this day and this night because it's best for you. And in even Islam, to some degree, we have that, like certain nights and certain days it's better to fast on, it's better to pray on. Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me like Halloween is an auspicious occasion for for certain traditions, not a Muslim tradition. So you want to maybe compare and contrast, what does an auspicious occasion mean for a Muslim versus the auspicious occasions of other cultures, and touch on Halloween?
Yeah. Well, for Muslims, of course, we connect our occasions with the prophets. And that's directly with the creator of the heavens and the earth, and with Muslims in particular, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He is the symbol and the occasions based upon the Islamic calendar. This part of the world and most of the northern countries, it's very auspicious in terms of Thanksgiving, because we should be thankful. Now, for Muslims, we are saying shukr alhamdulillah every time we eat. Every time we eat is supposed to be a Thanksgiving meal in a sense. But here, because of the abundance of fruit and ripened vegetables, people now take time out to thank the Creator on this occasion of Thanksgiving, which will vary based upon the country. At the same time, the Satanic cults, and there are those who worship the devil, there are those who have continued an ancient religion called Wicca. And Wicca, and this is out of Wicca comes the word witch. And this in the ancient Druid language is like wise one, because there were women who actually used to heal using herbs, and at the same time they could do harm. That was the belief of the people in Europe. So this Wicca nature-based religion, which to a certain extent, not completely, evolved into certain satanic cults. This is a very auspicious occasion. And the people...
So, like October 31st.
October 31st evening. And so therefore there would be literally celebrations and gatherings, big gatherings in Switzerland and in Scandinavia and different parts of the north, where witches would come together, where people who believe in black cats, the cat being the symbol of a dead human being inside this creature, and the whole symbol of the witch, and then the vampire, and all the different forms of evil, and now it's the Walking Dead and the zombies. So it's sort of all coming together now, and it's taking a new shape now with the Walking Dead, walking around. So therefore, it's very auspicious for them. For Muslims, this would be like their Hajj season, right? This is their pilgrimage, where they literally have big gatherings, and where they're allowed to bring out their teachings, and you see that their teachings are culturally reaching everybody now, because the main character in Halloween is not an angel or a saint or a priest. The main character is a devil or a witch or a vampire, something evil, right? Think about this.
Yeah.
That's the main character. If you come and you're a good person, they'll say, okay, what kind of Halloween is this? Okay, so literally, evil and the devil takes front stage. And so this is their chance. Other religions have their opportunities, but in the Western countries, and now they're spreading it around the world, this is the chance for the devil and the devil worshippers to come to the surface in an innocent form. It's little children dressing up. We're eating candy. It's the jack-o'-lantern. We'll take the face, the pumpkin, and make a face, right? It's got to be an evil face too, by the way.
Yeah.
And so evil becomes fair-seeming. It becomes interesting and enjoyable. This is what is happening now. And for Muslims, this is something very serious. Because the Quran talks about the fact that inna shaitan lakum aduwwun mubin, that the devil is for you an open enemy. There is no compromise with evil. And so this is shock. This is a shock for Muslims who come to the West and see people dressing like devils and evil and, talking about death and vampires and, giving it to children, as though it's something fun. But what is happening is that there is a rise of the satanic cults. It is a religion recognized in the United States. If you're in the United States military and you're Jewish and you die, they bring a rabbi. If you're Muslim and you die, they bring an imam. If you're a Christian, they will bring a priest. If you're a Satan worshiper, they will bring a priest from the Church of Satan to do your final rites. Anton Levy in the 60s in San Francisco, this church is now recognized in the United States. So this is the rise of the worshippers of Satan who have infiltrated the media, infiltrated pop music, infiltrated movies, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, which is still coming out. This whole concept now, the horror programs, which are so widespread today. If you go back 30 years, there was not that widespread. Now it is really important for the youth to see The Walking Dead and to see the different forms of vampires. It's like really cool. It's part of the dress and the folk culture. So literally it is a rise of evil, and it makes religious people appear to be outdated and not up with the times. So this is something we have to be very much aware of with our children.
That's interesting because as somebody who is Muslim in Canada, Halloween seems kind of innocent. It's like, hey, it's about candy, it's about dressing up.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Boston. I imagine you dressed up for Halloween as a kid. What did you dress up as?
Well, I grew up in Cambridge, which is part of Boston, and I lived in a housing project, 3-story housing project. So we literally had hundreds of houses.
Right.
So Halloween was a mass gathering.
Yeah.
And we would dress up and get our bags and go around from door to door.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested really to dress up as something evil. I wanted to be something good and powerful. So I would want to be Superman, or I would want to be, a folk hero, and that was me even when I was young, before I was a Muslim.
Right.
And we would go from door to door, but literally our parents had to sit us down with the bag of candy, and literally pour the candy on a table and go through it.
Yeah.
Because we had people who were giving out X-Lax, which tastes like chocolate, but gives you diarrhea, right?
Great. Laxatives
And,
are a great thing to
it's a
give
laxative,
to children,
right?
yeah.
and they would put razor blades and all types of things in the bag.
Yeah.
So our parents had to literally go through everything, open up the wrappers, check the candy and whatnot. And then later, in some parts of the Western world, there are cases of kidnapping going on, and so you'll see in most of the main newspapers today, they will teach the people, how do you trick or treat? Because this whole idea of trick or treat came along. This is something which is North American, and it's 20th century, where the children will go from house to house. And the idea is they will dress up in a disguise, and you're supposed to treat them. So they knock on your door and you treat them. If you don't treat them, they trick you. So what originally would happen is if you didn't treat them, they would smash eggs on your window, or they would have to do something evil to you.
That's where the term trick came from.
That's where it comes from.
So either give us a treat or we're going to vandalize your house.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So how did you vandalize people's houses?
Well, in our times, of course, we were in a housing project, so just door to door. But literally, you would see, some people who didn't get involved, you'd see a bunch of waste and garbage and rubbish in front of their door.
I'm going to back up for just a second, because you said something that made me remember this. So, like, for Muslims, we have Hajj, we have Ramadan, right? There's pre-preparation before the actual time, and then for the people who go to Hajj, they prepare themselves, they go on the pilgrimage, they do the pilgrimage, and then there's a celebration at the end of it, and it's all linked to Prophet Abraham and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and it's all linked to the lunar calendar, right? You were saying that this time of year, the fall season, is very similar for the satanic and sort of pagan traditions even today. That leading into the fall solstice, you have people gathering to worship and celebrate evil, darkness, spirits, those kinds of things, and that there's gatherings of witches and that kind of stuff. Just putting that out there. That so the root of Halloween is based on either Satan worship or pagan Celtic tradition. So why did Christianity again take, in your book you said they moved All Saints' Day from May into November. Yeah. Tell me one more time why they did that.
Well, you see that one of the problems that Christianity has faced, from way back in its early traditions, from the time of Paul, is that Paul actually brought in new ideas. And he took them away from the law of Moses. And he said, you can take on other traditions. And so literally it became a type of smorgasbord, a type of mixture of different religions, where the pagan nature cults actually became part of Christianity itself.
Yeah.
So therefore, the church, had to struggle against the negative images, especially the satanic images. And so therefore, you have the Thanksgiving ceremony, which is okay. It's thanking God. And then you have the evening before, the evil one. So the church tried to suppress, the evil part and to emphasize the Thanksgiving.
I see.
So what is happening is that the colors of Halloween are generally orange and black. Okay? Orange naturally being the main color of ripened fruits and the color of the leaves, that are changing in the fall season. But the black is the color now coming in from the black cat and the black dressed witch, and the concept of the night and of the evil. So this, again, that's the dual symbols that that you're getting at the time. Today, the challenge we're facing is that the religious part is being phased out or put to a side, and the commercial part is brought forward. So now it's Western culture. It's American culture, it's Canadian culture, it's European culture. It's just children having fun and eating candy, right? But there's a message being given behind it. It's an orientation. It's a thought process, right? It's a body language that is being taught, which can evolve into something else. And so what we're talking about is that, for Muslims and people of conscience, we want to steer clear of those evil concepts and that negative body language to try to, keep ourselves in a more, even, way of dealing with things and a positive concept in terms of, the direction of our children.
So earlier you had said that you can see on the visible signs of what's out there, like the Halloween costumes that are often like the devil or whatever, darkness. You can see on the outward signs symbols or indications of where the roots of the thing lay. And you talked about how in the eyes of the Quran, Shaitan is like your open foe, right? So he's going to try and get you to do stuff that would be more on his path. And the point is to trick you into thinking that you're not doing anything wrong, per se, that you actually end up, without almost knowing it, doing stuff that helps out the wrong side, I guess. I'm going to read a couple of stats that I found for you, and I want you to comment on it and tell me what you think. The first one was on the candy industry. So the National Retail Federation projects that there's going to be a record amount of spending this year on Halloween. $8.4 billion will be spent in 2016 approximately on Halloween. We're talking about decorations, talking about costumes and candy, of which 2.7 billion will be in candy alone. That's the second highest spend per year, next to Christmas time, which is just over $4 billion. So $2.7 billion in Halloween candy will be spent. And between Christmas and Halloween and Valentine's Day, that's almost 80% of the candy sales or confection sales for the year take place on those 3 dates. So we're literally putting about $3 billion in the pockets of like Nestle. We've got some names here. Wrigley this year is launching the pumpkin spice gum. 15 sticks for $2.50. Hershey has the caramel apple-filled milk chocolate. Nestle's Butterfinger has the molded skull cap. And M&M's have butterscotch M&Ms. And so all of these companies and brands you see like making Halloween-style candies, $2.7 billion.
That's right.
What do you think?
Well, again, this is playing into materialism, because when we look at shaitan, or the forces of evil, we're not just talking about a devil with horns and carrying a briefcase. We're talking about destructive forces. We're talking about gross materialism. And so it's literally taking this form now. And we learn, from our sources that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, in the ibadi, my worshippers, that they will, that the shaitan will not have power over them, illa man ittaba'aka min al-ghawin, except those who follow you. Allah says it very clearly to the devil. You will have no power over my servants, over my worshippers, except those who follow you from the ignorant people. And so literally those who follow the devil, those who follow evil, who are following this gross materialism, are literally following a Pied Piper and going down this road of materialism. The effects of sugar now on our society and the chemicals, it's horrendous what is going on. The level of diabetes and blood pressure, the rotting of teeth, the destroying of the bodies that is going on with this industry. We are literally setting up our doctors also to have an industry of diabetes, and whatnot. So we're literally destroying ourselves and literally destroying our society.
Like when you talk about like the begging thing and the candy being gelatin, there's a lot of information out there on candy and what's actually halal. Like lots of Muslims in North America know what candies are good, and they love the 50% discounts at Walmart on Halloween for like the box of Smarties, right? And then they don't feel like the kid dressing up like a pumpkin and saying trick or treat is begging. So what would you think is of all of the things out there that you've made a case for as to why you think we should just avoid the symbols and the participation in Halloween and adopt some of the other stuff like decorating your home for the fall season and Thanksgiving? What's like the most important factor for you that made even you go, this is not for me?
Well, even though I'm a graduate of Islamic University and you see me dressed in the clothes of Islam, I used to trick or treat, so I know what this is. I literally lived within the Halloween industry and went to door, and I know that feeling of going to the door and wanting to get the candy and, literally going and begging people, for the thing. That feeling Muslim child should not have. They should not have this desire to be going to anybody's house and asking them for food. And so literally, I've experienced this before, and I think it's important, for our children to be reserved and to have caution, in these times that we are living in.
Interesting. But the most important reason of all the things that you've given as to why we shouldn't be in Halloween, what's like the
most important reason is that that Shaitan is an open enemy to us. It's all over the Quran. There's no compromise, and this is his time. This is his people's ceremony. You can see it in their body language and the clothes that they wear. The whole theme around it. And they're not hiding. They're coming out openly and telling it to you. So we should not hide either. The fact that we don't compromise with evil in any way, shape, or form.
So you eventually stopped celebrating Halloween. How and why, and what should Muslims do?
Well, basically, knowing the roots of this occasion, the Thanksgiving part, which is a natural celebration for Muslims, and getting the family together. It's usually a holiday, so you get the family together. There's no religious ceremony, But, we are giving thanks as much as we possibly can to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in terms of the evil evening, that one, I believe, Muslims should take a stand. No compromise. In other words, we don't make it seem interesting for our children to be dressing up as little witches or devils or goblins. And even if you dress up like Superman or Star Wars or a Jedi Knight, at the same time, you're standing next to a devil, right? Secondly, in terms of the, asking, for food or begging in a sense, you're begging, you're going door to door. We learned that the Prophet ﷺ said that, that the upper hand is better than the lower hand. And so a Muslim should be one, who gives and who doesn't take. Also, the candies themselves, people who study it find out that most of the candies have gelatin in it, which is a pork-based product. So most of your candies today, are actually filled with this gelatin, products. They're questionable in terms of the substance, of the gummy candies themselves. And there's danger, and even our local newspapers will tell us there's danger in that evening, even for non-Muslims. They say, if you see a house that's darkened, don't take your children there. Travel around with your children, door to door. Don't leave them alone. Yeah. This is something, which is said publicly. So we have to realize there is danger in this evening, and that we should not be involved, literally. Shut your door, turn off your light, have an alternative gathering. And I don't mean that we're having our own form of Halloween, like some Muslims say halal-ween. There is no halal-ween. You can't take a pig and say Bismillah Allahu Akbar and make it halal. The pig is najis ayn. The pig itself is haram. But what we can do is have an alternative gathering for the children. Just make them feel good, so they don't think about the sweets and the candy, because this is like a drug. Because this dopamine, this feeling of pleasure that comes out of eating chocolate, and the rush that comes out of eating sugar, it's literally a drug industry. So we need to have something wholesome and healthy for our children, and keep them away from this ceremony completely. And we need to teach our children that they should be strong and proud of being Muslims, and proud of taking a stand against evil. You don't have to follow everything within the society. And we have to realize they have to be able to choose between different issues. This one I take, this one I don't take. And we don't take everything to be Canadian or to be American, right? We are allowed to choose. And so this is a very important quality, and this is a teaching moment for families, to show them we are giving thanks to the Creator, as the natives used to do, and as people throughout the world, but at the same time we're taking a stand against the devil and all forms of evil.
So take parts of Thanksgiving, avoid Halloween.
Exactly.
What about things like decorating your home? Like for this time of year, you get lots of decorative little pumpkins and floral displays and stuff. What do you think about and pumpkin spice lattes and those kinds of things?
Well, again, we can't take it too far, because, orange is the color of the trees. Mm-hmm. Whether we like it or not, if you have a tree outside your house, it's going to decorate your lawn. So literally, the light brown, yellow, orange color is going to be all around you. So, if that, decoration, if children are doing drawings of leaves and looking at nature, there's nothing wrong with this. The problem is the devilish symbols. For them not to be involved in this, in the devilish symbols, and also for Muslims not to see this as a religious time. There's no religious ritual that we are involved in during this time, but it is a constant thanking of the Creator for the food and the substance that we have.
So you're saying people in general are inadvertently participating in a religious tradition that's based on Wicca and paganism by participating in Halloween?
Exactly. And yes, the religious part openly is being phased out. But you have to realize that religion in its essence is a way of life. And the way of life includes what you eat, what you wear, your body language, your colors, your symbols. All of it is your way of life. And so therefore, we need to reject the evil forms of ways of life which don't conform with the teachings given to us by the prophets. But at the same time, from other cultures, we can take the good part. And so you can have a halal turkey if you want to. You can enjoy the pumpkins. Have a nice pumpkin pie. There's nothing wrong with that. Have a pumpkin latte. Whatever. There's nothing wrong with this, right? But keep yourself at a distance from the evil, and be proud of the fact that we stand for the Creator, and we stand for all of the prophets, and we stand for what is right.
Well, I guess if the average consumer is going to spend between $40 and $60 a person on Halloween, you get 10 families together, that's $600, almost $1,000. What could we do with that on that day?
That's right. You see, that money that we waste on confection and chocolate, we could actually give it to the refugees, to those who are suffering. Right here in North America, we have Muslims in our cities who literally don't have food. So instead of wasting it, why don't we give it to a food bank, a Muslim food bank, or a local food bank, and feed people who are in need, homeless people right on our streets. This is a more productive way, to enjoy this time of year, and this is a more productive way of showing thanks to the Creator.